That was flooding when I went by earlier. It's still flooding. The whole street. This reminds me. I did a whole video showing that when the goats arrive, the turkeys disappear. Don't come back until several months later. Got quite the family there. You're a good boy. Look how well behaved he is, leaving the turkeys alone. We're gonna go in here today. But first, let me help explain where we are. So I refer to this as location 1, and inside of location 1 I have a couple of study plots. This is an open space area next to a place called Veterans Park North, and this is what gets destroyed by the goats, as well as pretty much anywhere that you see native trees, except for over here. You know why? Because this is an urban forestry project on the right. Anyway, inside of here is where I just filmed yesterday how bad the weed problem is following the goat grazing. Let me throw a clip from that up on the screen so you see the issue. Now, I'll point out something else that's consistent is along the edges of human use paths, for some reason weeds grow pretty big, and just like everywhere else, yellow star thistle is reaching its prime. All right, let's head on in. I want to point out a couple of things. I have been filming this regularly, month by month, checking out the situation. So the changes with the native species or invasive species has all been documented. Now this is not like perfect, it's not great, but you see how much better it is than where the goats were grazed. I mean, whether it's perfect or not, if you're heading in the right direction by simply not having the goats, you gotta take that information and run with it. Hey, look, we have some plantains, a couple of native plants. That sure as hell isn't happening where the goats grazed. You do have some yellow star thistle. You do still have some vetch. And once again, you see that vetch is dry in some places and still green in other areas. You have these other areas, you see what happens when the weeds lay down. It looks like some wildlife have come through here and left some poop. Oh, it's starting to be dragonfly season. So far, nothing's come above my knee. That is absolutely not the case where the goats graze. Look at this. There's nothing even similar to this sort of gaps between thick invasive weeds in the other goat grazed locations. All right, let's go where the trees are a little bit thicker. So I am squatting down now. If I was in a goat grazed area, I'd be looking up at weeds. So we have a variety of things taking place down here. I don't know what that is. Anyone able to help me? This is a hawkbit. This is yellow flower tarweed. Some of the ones I'm finding in here are native, some of them aren't, but I tell you what, there's fewer of the nasties. This is not nearly the nightmare to walk through in terms of being stabbed. Look how short this is. Look at this that I'm coming across. This is different. You sure don't see this happening where the goats graze. I think this is marsh arrowgrass, which is native. Wow. And we got some Pacific poison oak. That's a good thing. It's good for the wildlife. I know humans may not be a fan, but we're not talking about what humans want at the moment. This is just from not having humans mess with it. No one comes back here. They don't mow this, they don't weed whack it, they don't graze it. And while it's not perfect, it's light years ahead of the areas that are constantly managed. Now think about the amount of money that goes into that constant management and the fact that they haven't gained any ground. Year after year of spending that money and you haven't gained any ground. And you can accomplish this just by stopping the stupidity? Imagine what you could do if you not only stopped stupidity but applied intelligence. This is interesting. It's a side topic, but this is not native. This oak tree is native, but coming right up next to it is a pistachio. This is a relic of the orchards that used to be around here. Still, it's better than ripgut brome. More of that arrowgrass over here. Here, this looks thick. So let's take a look underneath and see what happens if you don't mow and don't goat graze. Should be never-ending layers of last year's weeds, right? Oh, look at that. I found leaves already. And underneath of that, soil. Okay. You do not have to weed whack. You do not have to mow. You don't even have to understand how it happens, but nature takes care of the problem, especially if you allow nature to have the natives that she wants to work with in the first place. I want to talk about those leaves that I just found underneath of the weeds. The leaves are really important nutritionally for the soil, for the next generation of plants, for places for insects to hide, for the next generation of insects, for cocoons, for moisture retainment, for temperature control. It's insulation against cold and against heat. And it's a weed suppressant. In a severe situation like this, it's not a perfect weed suppressant, but it's clearly better than where the goats graze. And the goats eat a lot of the native leaves. So that's a pretty big problem. You know, they eat the leaves before they even have a chance to fall to the ground. They eat leaves that are on the ground, depending on the time of year they reach the area. I use the native leaves in my little yard, my garden, and every year they're gone. They just disappear. They become part of the soil. I never remove them, and yet they're gone. People need to understand that nature takes care of it. We don't have to do it. Imagine if, in addition to the progress that's been made in this spot just by not having people weed whack or graze, that we took that a step further and had a few, even volunteers, maybe a handful of employees come through and do what I've been doing and pulling the weeds, helping the natives, speed up the process of the natives regaining ground. That's way smarter and more affordable than the programs that are being used. This could have been a paradise of native plants by now. And I sort of regret that I didn't figure out that I could have been working in this area too, but it's also completely surrounded by people, so I don't know how much I could have gotten away with. All right, that's gonna wrap it up for this comparison location. Oh, I see a poppy. I should note that. See a couple of poppies. That's not happening where the goats grazed. You look at this poppy and you realize he's not in a very friendly environment. It's definitely surrounded by invasive weeds. But this is really interesting, at least to me. The difference is these weeds are already dead. They're done. And look how short they are compared to the other fields. This poppy actually has a chance to grow taller than the surrounding invasives, which is not what's happening where they graze with the goats. I don't know how to explain that part. It's certainly worth looking into and trying to figure out why the weeds grow so tall and so thick where the goat grazing takes place. We got some more poppies coming through over here. Where you have poppies try to grow where there have been goats, they're doomed, because these drown them out. That's not what's happening here for some reason. Look at this, I'm coming across more and more poppies. Keep fighting.
All right, that was June 1st, and I didn't publish this video prior to going back on June 3rd to the grazed area, so I'm going to show you the grazed area so you can have it fresh in your mind compared to this ungrazed area. That's all yellow star thistle and ripgut brome and other nasty things stabbing my legs and feet. Very different than where I just came from 100 yards away.
There, you can kind of see through the trees. That's the pathway that I crossed through into the ungrazed area. Here I am in the grazed area. Do I really need to say anything? I think your eyes can explain it to you. More Italian thistle. And even in these areas where it's a little bit shorter, I gotta point something out. It's not shorter. It's just been here so long it actually had time to fall over. That's a testament to how fast it grows back. This problem was here a couple of months after the goats just finished supposedly alleviating the problem. And the rest of the time it's just been getting tall enough to where it finally dies and falls over. This is nightmare habitat. Remember in the passive recovery videos when I would point at the ground, you could actually see some soil? I'm kind of realizing that by the time the goats arrive, the situation has changed. Like, these things have died and fallen over. I think this is actually worse than right before the goats get here, which means just leave it be. I'm trying to remember. was only a few days ago, but did I encounter this at all in the ungrazed area? And look at the height of it. I didn't encounter anything this height. No. Walking over there is a whole different world than walking through this place. I'm about to leave the grazed area on June 3rd, 2024, but one more thing I want to point out is even in these areas where it appears short, which I mentioned briefly earlier, but I gotta reiterate it. That's just because it's so old, it fell down. Look, these are the grasses, and the vetch is actually on top of that. You don't have that problem in the ungrazed area.
Also note how much yellow star thistle there is over here. I encountered like a handful of it in the ungrazed area. It's all over the place on this perimeter here, and then deeper into the trees there's a ton of the Italian thistle and even some bowl thistle that I didn't film. It's really worse over here.